in the little towns far from cities, they tell a tale of a cursed prince. His father, the king, died before he was born, leaving his mother to defend the kingdom from a warring enemy. The queen left the young prince in the care of his fairy godmother, but she was not a good fairy. His evil godmother sought the throne for herself by becoming queen. She was as beautiful as she was evil, and thought she could win the young man's heart by beauty alone, but the prince refused. So she placed a powerful curse upon him and all who lived in the castle. The servants were turned to animals or stone, and the young prince into a hideous beast. If he would not accept her for her beauty, then he was cursed to seek love as a beast. Beauty and the Beast. In the big city, far from the little towns, a widowed merchant lived in the mansion with his 12 children, 6 sons and 6 daughters. All his daughters were very beautiful, but the youngest, Belle, was the loveliest. Then one day, all of their trade ships were lost at sea in a storm, leaving the family poor. Unable to afford their mansion, they were forced to move to a small cottage outside a little town and to work for a living. 2 years had passed when the merchant heard word that one of his trade ships had returned. Before leaving to retrieve it, and possibly their fortune, he asked his children if they wished for him to bring any gifts back for them. The other children asked for fine clothes and jewels, as they think that their wealth has returned. But Belle asked for nothing other than that her father be safe. When he insisted on buying her a present, she said she was satisfied with the promise of a single rose. When he arrived at port to find his ship, the merchant was dismayed to learn that his former colleagues had already sold the cargo, thus leaving him penniless and unable to buy his children's presents. Empty-handed, he returned home through a vicious snowstorm and became lost. Through the swirling drifts of snow, he came upon a castle surrounded by lifelike statues. On seeing no one was home, the merchant went inside and found tables laden with food and drink, which seemed to have been left for him by the castle's invisible owner. The merchant accepted these gifts and spent the night in the castle, sheltering from the storm. The next morning, he was about to leave when he saw a rose garden and recalled Belle's desire of a rose. Pleased to be able to bring at least one child her wish, he went out into the garden. But as he plucked the loveliest rose he could find, a hideous beast appeared and shouted at him for stealing his most precious possession after having accepted his hospitality. The merchant begged to be let go, revealing that he had only picked the rose as a gift for his youngest daughter. On hearing this, the beast paused. He agreed to let the merchant go, but only if he brought the daughter back to live in the castle with the beast. But he made it clear that she must agree, while under no illusions about her predicament. The merchant was upset, but accepted the condition in fear for his own life. For how would his children live if he did not come home? The beast then sent him on his way with wealth, jewels, and fine clothes for his sons and daughters, and stressed that the man must not lie to his daughter about the deal. The children were thrilled to see the gifts he bore, thinking that their fortune had returned, but as he handed Belle the rose she requested, he informed her that it came at a terrible price. He told all the children of his encounter in the castle and the deal he had made. The boys insisted that they would go and fight the beast, while the oldest daughters blamed Belle for demanding a rose and urged her to go right her wrong. The merchant dissuaded them, forbidding all his children from ever going near the castle. But Belle decided to go, for her father's bargain must be kept. In the dead of night, she left home, following the path from her father's tale. And when she arrived at the castle, the beast received her with great ceremony and gave her lavish gifts of clothing and food. For several months, Belle lived a life of luxury in the castle. The Beast carried on lengthy conversations with her, and she noted that he was more inclined to poetry rather than savagery. Every night, the Beast asked Belle to marry him, and she refused. Belle stayed at the castle to ensure her father's safety, but she could not marry a beast. In her dreams at night, she began to see a handsome prince, one who perhaps liked poetry, and the little voice warned not to be deceived by appearances. Eventually, Belle became homesick and begged the Beast to allow her to see her family again, if only for a little while. The Beast allowed her to go on the condition that she come back in 2 months. Belle agreed to this, and the Beast presented her with an enchanted ring that allowed her to wake up in her family's home in an instant. Her family was surprised to find her not only home, but well fed and dressed in finery. When the 2 months had passed, they begged her not to return to the castle, and reluctantly, Belle agreed to stay a little longer. But that night, she had a terrible nightmare of the Beast dying alone, and she hastened to return despite her family's resolve to prevent her. Once back in the castle, Belle's fear was confirmed, as she found the Beast near death. Seeing this, Belle was distraught, as she realized she loved him. She fetched water from the nearby spring and tried to resuscitate him. When he opened his eyes and saw that it was Belle, the Beast smiled. With what he thought was his own dying breath, he asked her once more if she would have married him. And Belle said yes. At that, the Beast transformed into the prince from her dreams. They were married that same day and lived happily ever after.